This video and all other videos on this channel for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Alright, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy, Camel. And today we are one day out from FOMC, which for me is the big enchilada. When you can't find the adjective, use a food. But on a more serious note, okay, on the 19th, we are going to get this Fed rate cut decision, which so far seems certain that we are going to be remaining paused. Now, I still maintain this is overly restrictive. I'm going to continue to beat that same drum over and over and over again. But over time, particularly if we can get the yields to come off, particularly if we can find some sustainable trends in the macro data sets, such as unemployment and inflation, then we are going to see these rate cuts slowly but surely put back on the table. And when we start to click through May into June's meeting, you can see that the market is heavily in favor now of seeing rate cuts as early as June. I would not at all be surprised if we see them in May's meeting, but one day at a time. Whilst we wait for this rate cut decision, or lack thereof, I should say, whilst we wait for FOMC and the whole Fed speak voodoo magic that seems to happen every time we get there, the markets are trying their best to allow the cycles to bottom and to find sustainable, tradable lows. Some encouraging signs are visible to me, at least, because we saw extremely strong breadth since this most recent cycle low for the stock market. We just saw 2 consecutive days where over 90% of S&P 500 stocks advanced. Historically, the S&P was up 100% of the time 2 months later, telling me at least to keep an open mind about higher prices walking forward and for this to actually be the cycle low, okay, the tradable cycle low. Now, Ryan has a similar look here, okay, back-to-back 90% advance in days for the S&P 500. Data shows all the way back to 1972 that we were not only higher 6 months, but 12 months later every single time as well. So 2, 6 and 12 month forward returns all positive when we get this 90% advance in the S&P 500. Again, telling me to keep an open mind about those lows remaining the lows, okay? Cycles doing cycle things. Also, shout out Sonny here, who points out the LMACD for the VIX has turned bearish, okay? Telling us to expect the top is already in for the VIX cycle, looking for a lower VIX, and synonymous, of course, with higher S&P advances, and hopefully Bitcoin can come along for the ride too. Again, another piece of evidence that suggests to me we may have already seen the cycle lows for the likes of the stocks and Bitcoin. Over in the world of Bitcoin, okay, that whale, remember the whale that was not only putting a 300 plus million short on Bitcoin, but was also being actively hunted by some of the community, okay? This whale has just closed that position. Me and my brother Nasco were talking about this, and we think this might have been a market maker trying to spoof a little bit. We've got a little conspiracy theory of our own that we've been discussing, and I think there's a compelling argument to make that this is not a degen whale, but was actually some market makers spoofing. But I guess ultimately there's no real way of knowing. The whale did manage to avoid getting his stop hunted by that crack team on Twitter and has just recently closed this out for a juicy 9.46 million in profit. Many people are saying that this whale is simply a degen trader. It could be the case, but to be honest, I don't think you can survive very long being a degen, especially in this kind of size. So I don't know. I still lean on the side of this is a little bit of market manipulation, but the good news is, like I said, this seems to be closed, right? We seem to be at least having a chance here, starting to remove some of this spoofing and fear from the market. Under the hood, Bitcoin technicals still look great, especially when we zoom out and you can see still very much holding an upward and green trend. You can, of course, see, especially when we get my magnifying glass and zoom in here, it's not going to take a lot to start to get bearish, right? Lose these lows, start to fail cycles, start to continue to bleed much lower than we are, and we are going to have problems here. But so far, okay, tells us to keep an open mind about the path of least resistance being higher, especially with the stock market bottoming. And perhaps a little bit of dovish overtone from the Fed this week. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. And speaking of too optimistic, okay, Big Mike, I think, might just be the biggest bull on MicroStrategy out there at the moment. He has got a very compelling Elliott wave count that says we may be on our way to much higher MicroStrategy numbers. I would love to see it. I would absolutely love to see it. And not just for MicroStrategy's sake, but actually for Bitcoin's sake as well. I really think if MicroStrategy can continue to push to the upside here, it speaks to Bitcoin having a lot higher to go, versus if MicroStrategy continues to kind of make lower highs in here and roll over and die, then that to me would suggest the top for Bitcoin is extremely close. So I actually think this is way healthier for the market. Something like an 8x from here, 7, 8x, I mean, it's almost got to be worth paying a stop to find out at this point, I think. And MicroStrategy also showing leadership potential here, being amongst the first of the crypto stocks to look to try and break out. So we'll see, right? We'll see. If you're a level 3 member, look out for a potential upside trade from here. I don't really like it, to be completely honest with you. I still don't like it. And the main reason is it looks exactly like the last cycle top to me. It looks exactly like it. And if this is what's in play, okay, then from a risk reward perspective, is not really there, is it? That's not really how I like to trade. I much prefer to trade like this. So if Big Mike's count is even close to possible, then I think we can justify this, right? But but so far, it looks exactly, to me at least, like the cycle top is in for MicroStrategy. And a lot of people, you can see the inexperience in the market, because a lot of people hear me say this and they go, no way you can call for Bitcoin to go higher whilst MicroStrategy continues to make lower highs, right? How can you possibly be calling for that? But remember, that's exactly what we saw back here. I know because I traded through it. Most people don't, they weren't here for that, right? They didn't trade this. They have no idea what they're talking about. But the reality is, okay, we've seen it before. Bitcoin went on from this point to make a slight higher high and then top, and MicroStrategy made a lower high. So that's really what I don't want to see. I don't want to see that again. But so far, you know, this has been one of the most contrarian trades of my career. People were lining up around the block here to lynch me for selling out. And since then, okay, down 50% from the highs. So I would love nothing more than to see this yellow fractal break, which is what fractals usually do, okay, and see a new high come out of here. I think that would be super bullish for Bitcoin. But so far, okay, it looks a lot to me like this is what's going on, and that's after breaking down of a hyperwave. It's after failing Camel's 4 angles, 4 extremely rare, okay, 3 pretty rare, but 4 extremely rare. So for me, I don't know, man. I don't know how the bulls are so bullish here. But if there ever was a time to buy this thing, it would be 50% off the highs, right? Rather than up here when everyone else was irresponsibly long MicroStrategy. As ever, we'll keep tracking it, right? One day at a time. So far, though, clearly taking my time here has paid off. There's certainly no rush as far as I can tell. Bitcoin still hanging around, isn't it? And really starting to wear a lot of people down. Still no sign of a breakout. Nothing to say until it does something, right? Until it stops me out or moves to new highs, then we're just doing absolutely nothing, boring everyone to death. Unlike gold, that continues to march to new all-time highs relentlessly. Cycle's doing cycle things. Off it's pushing. The miners are paying us in the long-term accounts. The higher beta plays like silver are starting to pay us. I'm really, really, really bullish on silver here. If we can get above this high, then I think the snap to $50 comes very, very rapidly. And of course, if that's true, then the SILJ positions will pay us too. And we're also long the stock market via the S&P at this moment in time. So again, level 3 members notified in real time. We'll see what happens, right? We'll see if we can get any kind of follow through or relief. The big thing to watch for here is the lower high. Certainly don't want to see a lower high. Anything like this be me having to call tops, especially by the time we get an early warning sign here and most importantly fail the cycle, then we absolutely have to call tops. But given how bad the sentiment is, given how many people are telling me that recession is certain and we're already in a bear market and I missed the top, I still think there's a pretty good chance here that the path of most pain is this. So wild times, we will see. And as we kind of showed earlier on, VIX looks to me like it's topped for the daily cycle. So some kind of trade like this, you know what would be really nice? And people have been asking me to cover this lately. I would love to see this thing get sub 11, sub 12, down into my green area, right? We haven't done it since the prior big spikes, or just about grazed it here before the C19 meltdown. It would be really, really nice if the market would give us some kind of entry down here. Will it? Who knows? If it does though, you best believe I'll let you know. And I will do my best to catch this in front of everyone. But to the people that keep saying, why am I not covering the VIX or why haven't I covered it in ages? It's because everything above this green area for me is no man's land, right? I'm not really, there's been times in my career when I primarily traded the VIX, but ever since the Fed stepped in and started suppressing it with its massive short position, it's not been something that has been as easy to trade for me. The cycles have not been as consistent as they once were. And also the spikes just aren't as big as they once were either. They routinely used to get big pops, and we don't really get that, right? Obviously there's been one or two, like this yen carry trade unwind, but even that, ultra rare to see the size of the wick. And on the weekly chart, I mean, look at that. It's a massive outlier, right? That is a massive outlier. So this instrument is not what it once was, in my humble opinion, and that's why I don't primarily try to trade it as often as I do with other instruments. But if we can get down somewhere into this 12 and below neighborhood, then I still maintain this will be one of the trades of the decade. It's just things are taking longer than I anticipated, but you guys should be used to that by now, frankly. Okay, you should be used to this. I'm always a little bit too eager when it comes to these things, but yeah, just to be clear, okay, in here, sub 12, Camel is super duper uber bullish. Expect daily coverage and expect massive longs to come out of me. And if we don't get down there, then I don't care, right? Pretty simple, nice and binary, as is also the standard on this channel. If you made it this far, thank you for staying here. If you haven't checked out the indicator, you can go to camelfinance.co.uk, have a good look at that, sign up. I know a few people have signed up and have been really enjoying not only the indicator, but all the content on the website as well. You can of course try it risk-free for 2 weeks. Make sure you like it before you commit any capital. Other than that, trade safe, FOMC tomorrow. I'm your boy, until next time, cheers, bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see, rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame, sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key, taking us normies on a bump.